Michael Mack, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, hello. Nice to speak to you.
Um, it's been a very busy 12 months, I think, for you at Europa Park. Since the launch of the new hotel, Kroner's R, the reopening of Scandinavia, Snorri-Touren, Rulantica Waterworld, and now Pirates of Batavia. You've had a lot of new openings, and none of those things have stopped, even with COVID-19. How have you managed it all?
Well, it was indeed quite a challenging time the last couple of months. Having said, we had the biggest investments being done with Rulantica, with the Batavia ride, which is burned down after an accident, the Snorri-Touren, the whole Norwegian area. And so it's been tough, not only tough to manage those construction sites, but it made it even tougher when COVID-19 arrived. So we're quite, let's say, we're tired on one way, but on the other hand, we are happy that we can open at least the park to a certain amount of people.
And were there other moments that you thought you wouldn't get open this season?
Well, I think it depends to who you speak in the family. Obviously, it's been my dad's lifelong journey to build Europa Park and to open it. So he's now 72. And for him, it was truly more difficult emotionally after seeing the Batavia ride being burned down, which he invested a lot of time with his father, but also with Ulrich Damrau, our creative director at the time. So I think it must have been terribly for him to seeing his child just slipping away with the COVID and the fire. Thomas and myself being the eighth generation, being 41 and something just under 40, we do have a professional career still ahead of us. So we were a little bit more, let's say, not as negative as my dad was, and say like there might be with everything also a chance. But it made it truly difficult to believe that there will be a good season ahead of us.
Just tell me about your impact into Rulantica. I think that's maybe something that other members of the family have been more involved in than yourself, is it?
Well, I think so, yes, because it was the first park we constructed after Europa Park, which is truly dedicated to a 360 approach. We did publish a novel together with a German publisher called Kuppenrad. So we actually wrote the book before we actually built the water park. And we totally integrated it in the story world of the book. So we try not to be a European, well, in the heart being European, but yet having the freedom to be completely open to a fictional way of building things. So we decided within the family board to go a bit more fantasy with a strong European descendant. And I'm quite happy that I got the opportunity to create this immersive story world up front, and then having the luck to invest that much money for a single IP. And I think we did excellent with doing so.
Yeah.
And again, we said so. I mean, we opened the water park in November. Luckily that we managed everything at the same time to move ahead, because it was parallel. I mean, our construction team is about 30 people, and normally we do a attraction a year, and suddenly we did have 3 attractions. And that brought us to the limit, and that brought us really to a state which was not great, but we managed to do so. So having said so, it was in 2 ways very difficult when to manage all the construction site, opening a park with a new storyline, being from scratch. So I'm totally happy how we succeed in doing so. I'm happy to have had a great team working along with me, whether it be the people at Mack Solution, whether it be the people at Mack Next, and of course all the outside vendors who did a fabulous job on all the attractions we opened. And I think it's beautiful, so I can't say anything wrong that we needed more time, or what we have could have done better. So foremost, I'm proud of the things we did. But again, having said so, we're missing people.
Yeah, true. So when did you opened in November, and then when did you close the water park?
Well, we opened the park in November, and I think it must have been around March-ish when we shut down the water park. So we were about half a year in operation, and it was going extremely well. And then the shutdown came, and we couldn't open Europa Park. So we're back in track, let's say, since beginning of June, end of May.
Yeah.
We had a 3-month break in between.
And obviously operating with reduced capacity now.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that difficult to do within a water park?
Funnily enough, it is more easy within the water park because we have restricted numbers anyway because of the whole fire concept, like the escaping concept, like the it is indoors. Obviously, we do have different rules how many people you can have at the same time in an indoor building. Funnily, the water park is much more easy to handle because people are not enclosed. I think that's already something where you keep a distance because you won't be in your swimming bath. You don't want to be too close to anybody else anyway, and so the people keep it nicely the distance, and there are much less of people needed to operate it successfully. In the park, it's really much more difficult, and the cut is much bigger than it is for Rolandica at the moment.
I know before COVID, the occupancy at the new hotel Kronazar was doing very well. Do you think a 7th hotel would happen?
Well, we do see that the word once being used a couple of years ago of staycation, that people might want to stay much more in the country, is a trend we do see at the moment here at Europa. So we truly see people want to stay more and more home. They're afraid of traveling far. So we do see a positive trend of overnight stays. The hotel business is actually doing great. Investment would be nowadays rather investing into beds than into attractions. But again, having said so, at the moment, in Germany, we say our glasses are empty when it comes to investing for new attractions. And we first have to recover from the pandemic and restart, hopefully, with the vaccine being found soon, to have a general public responding more to theme parks, staying home. But I think we'll be looking into great next year.
Yeah.
Because I still do believe that people are going to stay and will stay in the country, spending their money with local brands and products.
And how much are you dependent upon German visitors? Obviously, you're close to the border of France, Switzerland, and you attract people from other countries too.
Well, luckily, I mean that's one of the good things in the crisis is that we are not so depending like Disney would be in Paris from overseas tourists. So we still have a very local market. So everything is reachable with the car. So like an average reach from our guests is like 2.5 hours in their cars, which is not a problem at all. So we're rather having difficulties with the legislation being different in France than in Germany. That French people can't easily access Germany. So I would say we're doing, regarding to other brands, really good because we don't have a lot of people coming by airplane, which is actually quite good for us. So no, we're not missing actually the tourists being further away because we really depend on the local market, which is good and bad at the same time. But so we can't see anything breaking down from tourists missing. I heard other parks really missing the tourists from abroad. I just spoke to an Irish friend a Scottish friend of mine who said, like, you want to play St. Andrews, go do it right now because the Chinese and American are missing. And I guess there are a lot of spots around the world who miss customers from further abroad. But for the time being, we're not seeing any downbreak at this part of the world.
And just tell us, there's a lot of different Mac businesses now. I think everybody knows Mac Rides, but there's Mac Media, Mac Animation, Mac Solutions, and Mac Next. Just tell us about the different businesses and how they work together.
Well, if you ask my dad, we have too many of the businesses being around. But I mean, we brought some of the brand names back into Europa Park. So starting with Mac Media, we changed that into being in our in-house agency. So Mac Media is actually producing real-time video content for the park, but also for our partners who are interested in taking the services. But it's not as it used to be, like a company who is out there on the trade show looking for business. So we put that back into our marketing in-house department. Same with Mac Solution. Mac Solution is going back to the construction team. So it will be literally our constructing team at Europa Park. And we're just now focusing on Mac Next being the business incubator within the company, having a couple of high talented people. It's literally a little bit like the Imagineers. That's what we're looking at the Mac Next, to really create the new attraction of tomorrow for theme parks. When we do offer the services from Mac Next also to our customers who are already purchasing a Mac Ride or out there on the market. So we don't want to actually step into concurrency to existing companies like Jora Vision or like other theming companies being out there. But we want to offer our knowledge to customers who already purchased a Mac product like a roller coaster or a VR attraction. So this is our internal arm for giving added value to existing business models and customers who did buy something from us. We do have Mac Animation, which is our arm at Hanover, producing flying theater movies, like the one in Voletarium, but also doing animated movies for your theme park, whether it be 4D or other attraction, like combination what you see at the moment with Pirates of Batavia, that we actually used our in-house animation company to do all the back screens with the animation. We do use Mac Animation for Snorri Touren. So once you want to get your ride being pimped up by animation, then you best speak with Mac Animation, because they are the expert in our group, knowing how a themed ride would integrate media. So they are just like doing the animation, the fiction, the 4D cinemas, and the flying theater. So that's Mac Animation, and literally those are the one. And then we have the VR coaster, which obviously does the VR headsets and the experiences. So the ones that are really who are looking for outside business are really Mac Rides, obviously selling the roller coaster, Mac Animation, giving an extra flavor to it by bringing the media to the rides, or doing like flying theater movies. And I think we're one of the very few on the market who actually can do real-time footage for flying theaters. I don't think there are too many out there. And the animation looks differently, but so we can offer both. We can offer real-time flying theater content, but also animated flying theater content. And then we're looking into VR coaster, and we're looking into Mac Next. So I think those are the four brands which we want to position stronger in the market, and to see visibility on the trade shows. But we're going to skip the Mac Media and the Mac Solution.
Obviously, there's no trade shows this autumn or winter. How do you think that will affect you?
Well, for Europa Park, it doesn't affect too much. We'd rather getting, hopefully, some of the local conventions coming back, like the Deutsche Schaustellerbund, like the German Showman Association, who is looking into making their convention here at Europa.
Okay.
we're talking to IAPA Europe if they could do a kind of festival here at Europa. So like from the local business, it's actually not so much as of a problem, but it certainly is a problem for Mack Rides. It certainly is a problem for Mack Animation. It certainly is a problem for VR Coaster, especially since we opened Ulby on the newest attraction. So it'll affect those three companies heavily. But luckily, Mack Rides has been there's been jobs waiting to be finished for the next 2 years. So some of them are postponed, but we still have got business for the next 2 years. So we hopefully get out well of that, not being at IAPA, but surely we need a trade show next year for keeping business running.
But still, it's important for you to have those customers outside of Europa Park. You don't just want to be an in-house manufacturer.
Well, certainly for Mack Rides, I think we are quite good off with Mack Animation because we're releasing a full-featured animation movie next summer. And we have plenty of things being done at the moment in the park, or being done in the park. So we're okay, but still, we'd love to do other flying theaters. We just recently signed a contract for a full animated flying theater in Kazakhstan. We did a second real-time shot movie, Fly Over Mexico, which is just finished half a year ago, and it's beautiful. Unfortunately, the world can't see it because we're in lockdown, but especially Mexico had some issues with that. So we were proud that we already did 3 movies, but we'd love to do more of the flying theater movies. But again, NMAC Next, NMAC VR Coaster is something we do have a custom base and still can approach them. But yes, we do need a trade show, and yes, we're going to be hit if it'll be another year waiting.
And how, if we look at VR Coaster, how do you think that's a business that would still be there in 10 years' time, putting the VR headsets on roller coasters, or is it always evolving?
Well, I do believe that. I mean, I just met somebody from a showman. I think you don't call him in English a showman. I think it's more like how do you call it, a Schausteller in German?
Yes, showman on the fun fairs, the traveling
fairs, yeah. So I just like the traveling people. I just met one, like the vice president of the German Schausteller Association or Showman Association, and he said like, and I did the Ulby attraction with him, and he said like, that's quite impressive. You know, I've been a Mack customer all my life, and it started with a caravan or with like a trailer, and then it moved on to a bumper car. And then I had a turnaround, a merry-go-round ride of Mack Rides, and now I'm wearing a Mack glasses. How amazing is that? So I think, and I was quite proud of him saying so, because he said, like, you involve within my 17 years of my life, you always reinvent yourself newly. And I think that's one of the strengths of the Mack family, and I hope we can continue this legacy, which has been now there for 8 generations and 240 years, but it's a constant reinvent yourself. So coming back to your question, I'm not quite sure if we're going to have in 10 years a VR goggle on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
But I do believe in the immersiveness of a theme park, being together with your family, having a jolly good time, and have an offer for the whole family. And I do believe that there will be gadgets involved, whether it be a VR headset or whether it be an AR headset. But certainly they're going to be something else than just a roller coaster to it.
And how do you ensure that it's still a group experience rather than being something like you could do at home?
Well, I think that wherever you have natural G forces, and people, again, I believe that people still do want to stick out or being together. Whether it be in a theme park, and even whether it be in a VR world. As I've been mentioning, we opened last week our Ulby experience, and even though you are in a digital world, it's so much fun seeing your friends around you, talking to them, laughing to them, having a good beer after the experience, and just sit together and have a jolly good time. And I don't think it's the one or the other. I think it's a fusion of being at home alone with your VR headset or with your AR headset or with your mobile phone, and on top of that, being together. But being together where you can share digital moments. And I think the one who gets that right is going to be the leader in the future. And so I don't believe it's, I mean, if you remember, there was the Face Popcorn report out there a couple of years, and it said like, oh my God, the internet is coming. It'll ruin all the theme parks. And look what happened. I mean, nothing of that happened. And the internet is still here, and it's a part of our life. And sometimes I wish it would be gone if people are walking through your park with their mobile phone in front of their eyes. But it's a part of our nowadays life, so you can't just like wish them away. It's a reality, and we have to face that and see how we can be entertaining, accepting that these techniques are existing.
And just tell us a bit more about Ulby. This is something a free roaming product you've just launched, free roaming VR. Is it similar to what you did on Eurosat with the coastiality experience?
To a certain extent, yes. I mean, what we did on the Eurosat is that you're just being tracked by your head. So it's like a pre-show to the right, literally, and you'll be 10 minutes within, like 8 minutes within a VR world, but you are just tracked on your head. And the difference between Ulby and the Valerian experience at Eurosat is that you actually are wearing a computer. You are using different VR goggles. So you are having, we're using the Pimax 8K downscale and 5K, but then you have a very wide viewing angle, which is nearly 200 degrees. You have the backpack computer on your shoulders, so you be much better off for the quality, having a high resolution picture. You get tracked on your hands, on your feet, and on your head, and even the backpack. So you do see yourself fully immersive, your whole body, which looks different in VR than in real life. So you're going to be all slim and good looking. So that's the positive thing about that. And
good for me. Thank you.
and then you'll be walking around for 30 minutes within your group, and you do see every movement of the people around you. So it feels literally like you're in real time with your friends doing an escape game, just in virtual, and it's really difficult to explain.
Yeah.
Really to explore it, but once you are, it takes you really, really quickly into the immersive world of VR. So it's quite surprising and fascinating for the people at VR Coasters did.
And you're starting it with a Rulantica storyline, and then you've got a Traumatica one for Halloween. Is that right?
Yes, we do have two different systems. So we have the Ulby 30 experience, which will be the more exclusive experience, where I said where you'll be wearing a backpack, where you are having different specs and different quality of computers and glasses. So this will be the premium experience, where you're going to be 30 minutes in the world of Rulantica. The Aces of Ace are calling you to save the island. So it's like a 30-minute escape game for Rulantica, saving the island. And the Ulby 10 is going to be technically differently, because you won't have the outside-in tracking. So you don't have cameras in the building being installed. I mean, on the Ulby 30, we have over 80 cameras hanging to really track you precisely where you're moving ahead. Working together with the Emmy and Oscar awarded company Vicon from the UK. Quite known in Hollywood for tracking people for the movies. So we have an English company setting us up with the cameras. On the Ulby 10, you won't be having any camera. You won't have a backpack. You won't be tracked your feet and your fingers. You're just going to have a normal Pico VR headset with an 8K resolution, and you're going to be having camera on your system. So you could set it literally up everywhere you want to play the game. And it's so that it's a 10-minute experience. So it's going to be the one is like the cheaper version, which
Yeah.
could be played everywhere, which could be played in shopping malls, literally all around the world. And the ULB 30 is actually the premium model, which you need certainly 80 cameras being installed, where you need backpack computers. So technically, ULB 30 is much more dense and complex than the ULB 10 system. And you're quite right. We do start with the two IPs. We do start with the Mission Rulantica for the ULB 30, and we do start with the Dramatica for the ULB 10. But our aim is actually to be a platform on both of the systems. So we love to provide an SDK by spring next year. So people actually with other brands could go on the system, like Apple is doing it with the Apple Store.
Yeah.
So other gaming brands could like enter and be a part of the UB world.
And inside the park, who is your market for this? Is it this everybody, or as you say, certainly with one of them, it's a premium experience?
Pardon me again?
Who is your market for this? Is it every guest within the park, or is it just a few guests as a premium experience?
Well, at the moment, it's not based right in the park, so it's not within your day ticket of the park. ULB is based at the moment at the Kronostar Hotel, close to the Kronostar Hotel, and it's a single attraction, so you have to pay an extra for it, and the capacity is like an hourly capacity of about 50 people.
Right.
And for the ULB 10, you have another 65 people. So you're looking at 120 max for both attraction. And this will be rather challenging to implement it into your park because you'd be overrun.
Yeah.
So we decided to try it to be a standalone attraction to see whether it could attract people. Even though we have a quite competitive surrounding with two parks being close to it, but we're looking into, is it competitive enough to be anywhere in the world? And would the people pay the price for having that experience?
Are there challenges related to with VR with COVID and distancing and cleanliness and?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, we still run our Alpen Express and our Coastiality experience within the park. We have happy guests every day, like more than 1,000 people using the experience, and so COVID is not a problem at all. Using VR technology for the ULB attraction, it's really something never been done before, and never been done in that scale. And having said so, when we spoke to Viken for the first time, they were able to track 20 people in their system, and now they scaled it up to 50 in their system. So they had a lot of research being done in the UK to have simultaneous groups within the experience, up to 4 groups out of 8 people. So that was quite a heck of a job to do, and we're not world famous in Europe for being great software producers. So it was quite a challenge, and we had to get everybody in to make this this experience going. And it was more like on a technical side, having a short time of development, like 1 year. So I would say that was the challenge, but certainly not COVID.
I know in ULB, the Adventure Club of Europe storyline is in there. This is a new storyline, or relatively new, that you have running through all the new attractions in the park, isn't it? Just explain how that works, and also how important it is that you have stories that run from one attraction to another now.
Well, I do believe that stories are very, very important because, as I said, the world is getting more and more digital, and I do believe that people do want to experience stories back home on their way to the park. I mean, I give you a perfect example. I told my son, who's now 9 years old, and I was showing him a new coaster, this little coaster alert there, a spoiler for the attraction, but I won't mention what kind of coaster it's going to be. But we're working on a coaster which hopefully going to be implemented in the park in 2023. So I showed him the layout, and he said, like, "Oh, Dad, are you doing a TV series with that?" And so I thought it was quite funny because he's just 9 years old, and said like, how about like, I'd love to listen to the story before you open the coaster. In my days, you know, you would get a nice merchandise once you rode the coaster, and you'd be pretty good off with it. And so I believe more and more that, I mean, we've always been storytellers in a certainly different way than the Disneys were at the days. I mean, Walt clearly came from a TV, movie area, and he was like a filmmaker. But we always told story with our concept being a European theme park. I mean, our story was the German and the European architecture. Yeah. So our story being told was in concrete, in tiles, and design. But we could have just built a normal park with roller coasters. But we always spend the extra money to make it European looking, to make it great looking, to make it out of concrete, to have it really hard built. And we still continue doing so, but I think that we have another level on top of that, and not only being storytellers with concrete and the European architecture, but we also could expand that experience into any form of digitalization. And I mean, we have a perfect output of our stories. I mean, nobody is most certainly waiting for Europa Park to be on Netflix or on Amazon. That's quite understood, but nowadays we could use our stories, our IPs, whether it be on a VR coaster where we control the technology, whether it be on a UV experience, whether it be in a 4D cinema, whether it be integrated in the ride like Batavia where you could use the assets being digitally remastered. So you could do a musical like we did with Rolandica in the park. So I think we could spread our IPs already quite okay without needing the Netflixes of the world. And we have a great distribution line with our Mack Animation Studio. So I think we'd be perfectly distributed if we wanted to, if we want to really have the cherry on the cake, but we don't need it necessarily. So we don't need the movie business to be successful in what we're doing. But of course, it would be nice if we once would launch one of our IPs in a bigger scale, which is not theme park related.
You'd like to do a movie, wouldn't you? An animated movie.
Well, we're already doing some. I mean, Happy Family 1, which was the a German animated movie, which was, I think it was differently called. I think it was Family United in the UK, and it was really on Sky. So we already did a movie. We're launching our second movie in summer, and certainly we have like two very strong characters who would be good for a film as well. So we're looking into making a third one for sure in 2025.
And the 360-degree approach, as we talk about, you wouldn't now, when your son said for this roller coaster, is there going to be a TV series? If you'd said no, he probably would have said why, wouldn't he?
You would. I was rather upset with my guys not being faster. I would love to show him already, say like, oh yeah, Daddy got it in his pocket, and just open my laptop showing him the first episode. But yeah, I'm too slow on that. Getting older.
But that's all. Everything you do now will never be a standalone product, even a smaller attraction, maybe.
I wouldn't say never. I mean, never say never. You know, I mean, I just think what we learned within our decades of being an entrepreneurial family is like you're always gonna watch your people, always watch your guests, always be conscious of the market. You know, like always be flexible enough to change your product. Always. Just finance. I mean, there's been a couple of old sayings which my grandfather just gave me on my way, and he said, like, you know, always be careful with your money. Always don't over invest into things. Like, just buy what you can pay, and things like that. Like, put something to the bank account. You know, some like old sayings of my my grandfather and also the generation before that helped us to really cope with the crisis. I mean, everybody's obviously losing money, but still having said so, investing quite a lot of money for those attractions and still being in the business is quite, looking for the right word. Surprising is the wrong word, but it's, I mean, it makes me proud to see that we did a lot of things, and my forefathers did a lot of things right in the past, and I think we should stick to those rules and not overpace with things. And who would ever have thought that the best restaurant in Germany would be placed in Roost? Whoever thought that one of the biggest hotel operators would be placed in a tiny little fishing village called Roost? I mean, whoever thought that the world's best theme park being in Roost? So I would never say never. I do believe that if you do heavy investment on big rides, you should incorporate them in the story. Does it have to be every single ride? I don't think so. I think we should keep also our European tradition, our European architecture, and maybe don't overload people with a story everywhere and get them really like the big American parks do, you know, do them constantly, give them constantly the impression of being overwhelmed, of being like in the need of buying some merchandise. So I think it's the mix, watching your customers carefully, look what they want to have, and don't overload them with stories.
But while we're talking about stories, Snorri Tour and Snorri's tours, the dark ride you opened last October, that sets the scene for Rolantica. Was the whole reason for building that to whet the appetite for Rolantica?
Well, I think there were several reasons. One was that my grandfather always had in mind to build a dark ride underneath of the Scandinavian area. And we never had actually a place to do so, because over the years, the basement was used as a cellar for lighting and decoration and stuff like that. So we never touched that project, which was the wish of my grandfather to really put a ride down there. And then when the fire came, we obviously had to redone everything. So we remembered the idea of our grandfather, who would have loved to have a ride downstairs. And we said, like, hey, Granddad, you want to have the ride? So let's give them another try. So that was reason number one. Number two was it is a great cross-promotion for the water park. So we said, like, if we're going to do something, it certainly should be something in the theme of Rolantica. The third reason was like that the Scandinavian village has the same look and feel like our Rolantica water park. So it's a Nordic saga. So we felt quite comfortable in doing so. And the fourth reason was certainly to show the world that we are able to have a lot of our assets of our company being involved, whether it be Mack Rides producing the ride, whether it be Mack Next developing the concept, or whether it be Mack Animation delivering the content. So I think this is the first full motion ride being brought to Europa Park, which shows all the different qualities we have within our company.
I was writing a story the other day about Pirates in Batavia, and I didn't realise quite how many dark rides you have. You just really like dark rides. They're a great way of telling a story, I guess.
Well, I think that's a curse and a blessing. I think Mack Rides at that day, when we did a lot of the Schausteller or the showmen, we did quite a lot of dark rides, or like haunted mansions. So I think it's one of the rides of our legacy of the past, which we've been building. So obviously they made the way to the park as well. But I think we're still pretty okay with dark rides. And having said so, we're looking into the coaster segment now much more than into the dark ride segment.
But you have just relaunched Pirates in Batavia, which is a historical ride, I think, over 30 years old now, as you mentioned, burnt down by fire. What have you been able to improve when you've relaunched it, and how have you changed the focus of the ride?
I think what we try to is like keep the old and make it better. I think that we pretty much looked into it, and we kept the ride system the same. We prolonged it a little bit. It was woven in a little story with Robberman, the founder of our Adventure Club of Europe. We changed the animatronics. We bought them over from a company in the US. So I think we put in Mack Animation content. So I would say like just like keep it as it was, but bringing it to a new state and making it a bit more modern. I think that's how I describe it. Like keep the old feeling, but maybe make it better or newer.
And you changed the story a little, or
we did. I mean, in the old days when Ulrich Dammer told the story, obviously it was quite a cruel story because it was of the Dutch sailors, you know, like literally taking over a lot of the countries, including Jakarta, Batavia, and kind of plunder the people over there. And I think it's a quite difficult story to tell. Nowadays, we had people in the right being torn by their hairs, and I mean, you know the story of the past, especially being British, that we not always behaved the way we're doing nowadays. So we try to actually put the story much more nicer, saying like there is like the bad guy called Cortez trying to look for the fire dagger, and which is hidden into Batavia, and Doberman joins him for this journey, falls in love with Ling Fei, an Asiatic lady who knows where the fire dagger is being kept, and it's a bit of a James Bond story. You know, they fall in love. She tells him where the dagger is. He takes the dagger and found the AC. I mean, that's literally the story to it, but it's not as cruel and bad as it used to be told in the old ride.
And is it maybe a little less like Pirates of the Caribbean, which I know people always compare it to, either fairly or unfairly? But
I think what Disney did with the Pirates of the Caribbean is far off of being compared. I mean, yes, they're both pirates rides, but I think that's the utmost you can go. I mean, they're both pirates rides, and certainly we were inspired by Disney putting that ride in, but I wouldn't want to compare it because Disney, the Pirates of the Caribbean is a legendary ride, and let's say we have a European version of that, but you can't compare.
Do you now only want to feature your own IP in the park? Obviously, you have the Arthur ride and some other partnerships over the years, but what's your view on IP? Does it have to be yours, or would you still work with somebody else?
Again, it depends. Like I said, like doing the one thing without doing the other. You have to carefully control the IPs. I think you carefully have to see what does really fit into Europa Park. So I don't want to be a branded park like a movie park could be. So I don't want them to have like IP of the other IP. There are a couple of good European brands, which I think would be eager to bring into the park. One is, funnily enough, being based in the UK. It's about a small agent like going around the world doing things. So this could be one of the IPs I really would love to have, especially it's so British. So I think you really have to carefully watch which IP are taken into your park. It differs a little bit when you look at the UB and the VR attractions, because they literally can do everything digital, everything. Every IP could be a part of your digital experience. When it comes to changing the park DNA within the architecture, I couldn't think of having a Marvel ride in the park or like Captain America, because I think that's just too far off of our IP. Whether there are a couple of European IPs which I'd love to have in the park, but again, it's like really keeping the right balance and doing the one without not doing the other. So like keeping the balance, and I think it's A and B. It's not just one of them.
Yeah, you mentioned that you've have to be more careful, shall we say, about investments over the coming years because of COVID and the drop in numbers. But have you had to cut any major plans in your in your plans? Any big investments?
Well, luckily we got all the people back on work. So like nearly everybody's back on work. We're still missing heavily our entertainment business in the evening, like our evening business. Literally, when you have like conventions and people celebrating here in the park at night. That's a big stake on conference business, but we're still missing heavily. But having said so, yeah, I mean, we're postponing a couple of things, but I wouldn't say that I mean, again, we've been investing incredibly a lot, as you mentioned at the beginning of the talk. So I think we're in a fairly good position now to wait for another half a year and see how things going.
But you're combining the Halloween and winter season this year, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
We will be opening all year round till mid of January.
And that's, I guess, just a more efficient way of running that seasonal event, isn't it? Those two seasonal events.
And again, because we need the people to come to help us to end the year quite okay. So it's not only efficiency, but it's also missing of guests visiting Europa.
What can we expect to see in the next 5 to 10 years? You mentioned the new roller coaster 2023. I know you'd like to expand Rulantica. There's a lot of land around Rulantica, isn't there, now that you've bought?
Again, like, of course, we'd love to grow. I mean, as you know, we're a family business, so I'm at the age of 41. There are kids waiting, so more to come. Certainly, they're going to be an expansion, or hopefully, they're going to be an expansion if the business is good with Rulantica. Hopefully, there's going to be an expansion in the hotel business because we do see a trend for staycation. And of course, there are some more places in the park which are waiting with great ideas. So we are thinking of putting at least 2 more themed areas within the park. At least, I would say, 5 more attractions coming into the park. And if you talk on a long term, like 5 to 10 years, I'd love to see once a cable car crossing the River Rhine towards France. That's one of the ideas which are still sticking in my head. Expanding to France, and I think that would be a unique thing, or once in a lifetime, to really have 2 countries and 2 different locations within 2 countries, which would be connected with a cable car. So that if you're asking me what would be my lifelong dream, that's certainly going to be a cable car connecting 2 countries.
It's not far, I know, but how far is it, the distance?
It's about 3.5 to 4 kilometers.
Yeah.
Depends how direct you can go.
How is the relationship, we should have touched on this earlier, but with your brothers and sisters and even your uncle? They all work in the park. I think we mentioned your rides and certainly technology. Your brother's more into the hospitality and the hotels, isn't he? Thomas?
I mean, that's the great strength of being a family company. I mean, yes, we do have a great understanding. Luckily, I mean, touch on wood, that stays for the next decade the same. But no, we do have a great relationship, and I think that's the strength. If you do understand yourself with your sisters and brothers, it's one of the strengths of a family business, because everybody is having his own division, his own emotion to the product. So Thomas is doing a great job in heading up the whole conference, entertainment, hotel, food and beverage, and the park. Did a great job in doing the whole operation of that. My sister is heading up the construction department. She's quite new to the company, so I'm finishing it off with Batavia and handing over to her construction department. So, but she's been good off with that. We have Jürgen, obviously, who's doing all the finance and the HR department. So I think we're a perfect team working greatly together, and I'm really proud that we have this variation within the family. Everybody has his own head on, and we get along quite perfectly.
And your children, I think 9 and 6, you say, that are they already showing an interest? They must be.
Well, of course, they love theme parks and they love roller coasters. But again, I don't want to pressure them. I want to give them a life as possible or as normal as possible, let's put it that way. And I think the family is big enough. I think it was surely different when my father brought Thomas and myself and Ann-Kathrin up. We have in the next generation, we have for the time being already 5 descendants and not everybody is married yet. So I think there's going to be 10, 15-ish of us. And I think they should really do what they love to do. And of course, being the best in their fields. But I think we don't have the same pressure that my dad had. Everybody had to go to the company. So I think that's a nice situation for them. And of course, we live in the park literally. So they kind of soak it in with the mother milk, I would say in German, like they really experience it from a very, very near distance and or close distance. And I think that helps them certainly heading or running a theme park when they're grown up.
Will you ever retire? Do you think your father will retire?
Well, I think the most important thing is that he's happy, and well, I have nothing against it at all. Sticking his nose in and giving me advices and giving the family advices. I mean, we can see that he's stepping back, so the operational business he's not any more involved, but we're on a day-to-day basis on the phone. So, I mean, my dad lived the company for 50 years. I mean, he never had a hobby. He never had something apart from that. So there's no reason of kicking him out or telling him to stop.
He's not done a bad job, has he?
No.
Michael Mack, thank you very much for your time. I know if people want to send any questions through the V-Expo, they can do, and you'll answer those if you have time. But thanks again for joining us today. It's been great to speak to you.
Thanks a lot, and the best regards to the UK or wherever you're watching. It was a pleasure speaking to you.